Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nikolai Stoikov, and welcome to the Trading Patterns podcast. With me is Mr. Dimitar Kitchev. Hello, Mr. Kitchev.
Hello, Mr. Stoikov. That's a nice change of format.
That's right. We're doing other pattern episodes, and other pattern episodes are episodes that we're going to be talking about something not quite related to trading. And today's episode is the story behind trading patterns. And I'm going to be in the chair asking questions, and Mr. Kirchhoff will be in the chair answering them.
That is pretty out of pattern.
Yeah, it feels weird, right?
Yeah.
Right. So one of the questions I got from my friends in New York was, who's this guy, Dimitar? So, Mr. Kirchhoff, who are you?
In a professional plan or in a personal plan?
I don't know. How do you define yourself?
Okay, I would define myself as a very curious person.
All right. How old are you?
I'm 26 years old.
Okay.
Born and raised in Bulgaria.
All right.
Lived abroad for a couple of years.
Okay. Where?
Yeah. The Netherlands.
Okay.
Or is it Holland right now?
Yeah,
There
well,
was
either way.
Okay,
Either
yeah.
way.
So I lived for 1.5 years in Holland and nearly 2 years in Denmark.
All right. Did you like it living abroad?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
nice. And what do you do for a living?
I sell.
Oh, you sell.
Yeah.
Well, who do you work for?
I work for Alaric Securities.
You got it, folks. That's a conflict of interest. I'm
Potential.
Potential
Yeah.
conflict of interest. I'm Mr. Kirchhoff, direct supervisor. So let's put that potential conflict of interest right there for people to decide.
Yeah. It started as an internship.
All right. I was going to ask you, how did you end up at Alaric?
Yeah. Well, interesting story. I signed up for the CFA program.
Okay.
I cleared the first level above
Okay.
90th percentile. Bit of a show off here.
All right.
Yeah.
You're smart. Why do you think you're smart?
I think I'm smart. Yeah.
Okay. Nice to be humble.
You know, a couple of days ago, I heard something. Being humble, some people consider it a quality as long as you don't have other qualities.
Well, everything has its place. So being humble is not in itself good or bad. So it depends what you're humble about.
Right.
So-
Right. So I cleared the first level of the CFA program, and I started looking out for internships because I have no working experience, at
Mhm.
least not in the financial industry.
Were you a student at that time?
Yeah, still am actually.
Okay.
Last year.
All right.
Yeah. So my best friend
Mm-hmm.
actually used to be a trader in Alaric Securities, day trader.
Okay.
He was under your supervision
Yes.
as well. So I asked him if he can arrange me an interview with you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for an internship that would last 1 or 2 months. I don't remember exactly.
Uh-huh.
And after that, my plan was to have another internship in another company,
Okay.
rival.
All right.
company. So, yeah, I came with no expectations at all. I was like, okay, let's just give it a go, see how it goes. And yeah, I actually ended up liking it a lot. I had really high expectations about my next internship, and Alaric Securities ended up being much, much better. So yeah, as soon as my other internship ended in that other rival company, I remember asking you whether a position could be open for
I
me.
think that the right word here is begging me.
Right? Point taken.
Some version of begging.
Yeah. I really wanted to work here. So a couple of months later,
Uh-huh.
he offered me a position, and I started working here.
Right. And when did the idea of the podcast came in?
Right after my internship here ended.
I see. And
Yeah.
when did your internship end here?
February 2022.
Okay.
After my internship in that other company, I decided to go to my parents. Back then they were in London.
Mm-hmm.
So they still have a construction company. So I went there to help them with the administrative work, to negotiate with clients and all that. And I remember keeping in touch with you.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, hey, why don't you write a book? Because you have the experience, you know how to advise traders, young professionals in the financial industry. So it's like, just write a book, talk about discipline, talk about habits, something that we actually did not talk about yet.
Yes.
It should be an episode.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. I remember asking you to write a book, and I remember you telling me that you would feel more comfortable having a podcast.
All right. And what made you want to participate? Because, like, this is another pattern for you. You've never really done some sort of a broadcasting. You've never been interested in, I don't know, like some sort of a webcasting or podcasting kind of career. Why did you agree? What made you kind of? I mean, I asked you if you want to do it, but what made you say yes?
Well, yeah. Now it's gonna sound like I'm trying to save the world. And the
Aren't
world,
you?
No. I'm not trying to save the world. No such world exists.
Okay.
So, yeah, you're right. I never had any experience with podcasting or being live on TV or public speaking publicly, even though it's just you and I here. But
yeah,
a certain amount of people are gonna hear this. I remember being worried about it, especially in the first few episodes. But I was kind of determined to pass your knowledge to others. I was very confident that your advices need to be heard from others too, because your advices helped me in particular ways. I benefited from your mentorship, and I was really sure that others can benefit as well. That was the main reason. Not trying to save, like I said, not trying to save the world here, not trying to,
And in what shape, how do you think I influenced you? Like how like if somebody's listening to our podcast, how do you would advise them to listen to them, or like what advice would you give them if they were to have use of the podcast? How should people listen to it?
Well, be open-minded, I would say. Be really open-minded. Like a lot of people just pretend to listen. Yeah. And they think that what you're about to tell them is just the same generic things that they can hear anywhere else. But if you really open up your mind and you let the other person's thoughts enter you, you start to realize what they actually mean. So when you talk about discipline, when you talk about healthy habits, everybody thinks, waking up early is important. Going to bed, especially early, is also important. Having a healthy diet is important. That's common knowledge, right?
Yes. But people
who does that?
Right.
If you tell that to others, they're going to agree with you that it's important, but who is actually going to push through that?
Right.
And if you open up your mind and you actually understand the benefits and you put the efforts in, you start to see results.
Yeah, the important thing, like I have a little bit more more specific instructions. Let me give you a little bit of the story that Mr. Kirchhoff was here at the company, and I would write him every morning. So every morning he would receive a Viber message from me. And how easy were those to read, Mr. Kirchhoff?
Damn, I remember those were really hard to digest. During the day, I would go back to these messages and reread them a couple of times.
And the important thing for our readers is just to give you an indication. So Mr. Kirchhoff has been at the internet at Alaric Securities maybe for several weeks. And I go on TV and post the interview on Facebook, and go to Mr. Kirchhoff and say, Mr. Kirchhoff, did you see the interview? He's like, yeah, I liked it. I said, oh, if you like this interview, you would like an interview that's several years back. And I scroll back on my Facebook profile, and he's known me for 2 weeks, maybe 3. And he's I have maybe 10 to 15 interviews. And Mr. Kirchhoff says, I've watched them all. And it's sometimes you make an impact on people, but I've never made that quick of an impact with that little time with anybody. So I knew that Mr. Kirchhoff would be a special case.
I think at the core, a person needs to be curious. I mean, when I first came here for the internship, I was blown away. I mean, you had a career on Wall Street. As our listeners probably know from previous episodes already, you had a pretty interesting, colorful life.
Yes.
in the States. The CEO of the company also had a pretty interesting life in New York City. So I grew up watching movies. Okay, not The Wolf of Wall Street, because The Wolf of Wall Street was pretty recent, but what was that other movie about Gecko?
Wall Street itself.
Just Wall Street.
Just
Yeah,
Wall Street.
just Wall Street. So those types of movies were pretty impactful for me. And suddenly I'm in a surrounding where such people actually are your bosses. So yeah, I was curious and I wanted to learn.
I see. Why do you think I want to do a trading podcast? I mean, trading patterns.
Why did you want?
Yeah, why did I want and why do I want? What do I get out of it?
You want to impact others too.
I
Don't
want
you?
to save the world.
Yeah, actually, I think you're a bit more of a lost cause there.
All right, yeah. So that could be a mistake. Yeah, the idea behind the podcast is it's a very hidden pattern, but the reality is, in order to see patterns, you need to teach people how to do it, and your willingness and kind of ability to transfer this knowledge about patterns, about any patterns, but in this particular case, trading patterns, is what determines your ability to see further patterns. So it's like it's one of those things that you could delay and you can pick and choose when and whom to teach. But if you begin to skip on those opportunities, you're going to find insight also into the markets decreasing. So it's one of those things that they don't teach you, and it takes quite a long time. But it's virtually giving and receiving are interconnected. And at some point, you need to transfer the knowledge to other people. And this is like a very difficult test, because I was thinking about it. Okay, what if somebody listens to the podcast and is actually very, very smart and has good access to data? How quickly can he theoretically learn everything that I know, that I've learned about 24 years? What do you think would be the answer? So if somebody is very smart, has good data and kind of like ability to collect it, how quickly, optimally, can somebody gain all my experience? It's impossible, but theoretically, let's say theoretically, if somebody has good guidance and is pretty determined, sleeps and very kind of focused, my answer would be 6 months. 6 months. 6 months to a year. If you listen to the podcast and you get the ideas and you kind of like, get a lot of those kind of maybe incomplete directions right, you could copy everything for a year. Virtually, that's what everybody is. So all the condensed knowledge that you have, experience, could be transferred optimally within a year to 6 months, something like that.
But that would probably require a tremendous amount of effort.
Yes, we're talking about theoretically what's possible. Practically,
yeah.
Practically, what prevents people from learning is not that the knowledge is very hard, is that they believe the opposite. So in that particular sense, if somebody is really open-minded, and if somebody is like dedicated and is relatively smart, he could get a lot. But odds are most people believe something that's contradictory to what they say.
But do they actually, or they're just fascinated by the idea of being on the contrary side? My experience, my humble experience with people so far, is that people just love to argue. So is it that they actually know better, or they think they know better?
They think they know better. One of the patterns, or one of the models I say to people, that it seems like young people are exceptionally difficult to accept that this is true, is the motto goes something like this: miracles are habits, and as such should be involuntary. Miracles under conscious control tend to be misguided and never happen. And what that means is, you have a dream and you have an idea how your life will be. It's not going to happen like that. And it's very hard for the young people to say that, what do you mean it's not going to happen? First of all, it's not going to happen what you think is going to happen. And even if something like that happens, you're better off not thinking about this. So you concentrate on your habits that is going to get you there, and you don't dream about the results. And that's particularly very hard for young people to accept that it's true, even though there's some evidence. For example, very early on, like, as a man, and most of our audience are men, you learn that it pays not to fantasize about the woman. So to be less invested in a relationship than the woman. If you're more invested into the relationship with the woman, bad things happen. Isn't that true, Mr. Kirchhoff?
Experience tells me yes.
Yeah, and you know that pretty early, maybe like late teen years, like that becomes apparent. You need to be invested less in a woman than she's invested in you. It's a known pattern. It's like if a woman kind of sees you as weak, she's really not attracted. If a woman is acting weak and she's really invested in you, that's unattractive, but not as unattractive to
as her being the alpha.
Yes. Exactly like this is in the financial markets. People are too invested into their positions, and they can't think rationally, and they get angry. And but once everybody around them talks about fulfilling the dreams, and people don't realize the essence. Miracles are habits, and we're looking for miraculous habits. We're not praying for miracles to happen. We're looking for ways to pick up miraculous habits, and that could take a lifetime. I mean, people love to daydream about the things, and daydreaming is to be refused in the financial markets. And if you daydream, you're gonna stop, and you're gonna pick a pattern or two, but you're gonna stop, and it's gonna be a dead end.
Actually, when you said that traders are too invested in their positions, that's why it doesn't go well for them. I have a question. So basically, a trader doesn't earn a salary, right?
Yeah.
They get a percentage of what they earn.
Here at Alaric, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So would you say that a young trader is predisposed to more success if he is financially stable? By financially stable, I mean to cover his expenses rather than being stressed about, let me see what trade I can make, how much money I can earn so I can, pay my bills. Is there a correlation?
Yeah, it's the happy medium. If financially a trader is well provided for, odds are he actually never put effort, or he has never put in serious effort in his life, just because he's always had some sort of safety, comfort zone. If he's too close to the edge, it's very difficult for him to kind of segregate himself or separate himself from the financial success that's immediate. So in that particular sense, like some sort of financial security is probably necessary, but too much financial security could act as some sort of it could be actually something that the trader never feels like putting an extra effort, what we call on the previous episode. How did we call it? Blowjob effort.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. Some blowjob effort is necessary. And and if people that are well provided for come from wealthy families, usually take a cavalier approach to life, and that results in not so successful career.
So the perfect situation is to be hungry but not starving.
That's right.
I see.
The most important thing is actually the mindset that you described, just being curious. So like, some sort of hungry could be described, but the ideal mindset is just curious and open-mindedness. And that's very, very rare. And people are curious but not open-minded, and that's usually kind of like the stumbling block, and it requires you to correct errors that you've accepted as true very early on in your life, and most people don't do that. What do you think is the most important episode? I mean, I know all of them are important, but what do you think? Which one do you like listening to the most
so far?
Yes.
I would say the one about investment returns.
Okay.
Yeah. Where you dethroned, who was it, of the Renaissance Capital? Renaissance Technologies.
Jim Simons.
Jim Simons and Mark Minervini. Right. That's my personal favorite. Right. A lot of traders, both experienced and not so experienced, are fascinated by Mark Minervini. And Jim Simons simply because they can't invest their money there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
My personal favorite. As importance, I would say deep knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah. I think everybody needs to take notes from deep knowledge.
Right. What about Party Like a Rockstar? Maybe take notes there.
Party Like a Rockstar is actually one of the out of pattern episodes that we did. We plan on doing out of pattern episodes every once in a while.
Right.
So yeah.
What do you think most people, if you have never listened to the podcast before, what would be your advice and kind of people that which way they should listen to it? They should go from the first episode. They should go from the episodes they like.
I think we're pretty meticulous in picking up the episodes order. I think they should just start from episode 1 and just move forward.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's realistic that will actually save a lot of people or point them in the right direction? Is that possible?
I would like to believe it is, yeah. I mean, that's why we're here.
Okay.
It's important for something to be successful. It should stand the test of time. And I think what we do is timeless. The advices that you give are going to be valid years from now. So yeah, I do have confidence that now or a year from now, 5 years, 10 years from now, somebody's going to listen and somebody's going to take notes. Hopefully it's going to make healthy changes in his or her life. We do have actually people that listen actively and are taking notes. Females too.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Do you think a trading pattern would be successful one day in terms of recognition, be one of the top 10 or top 20 financial podcasts?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. Do you want to buy some Lambo?
From the podcast?
From the podcast, of course.
No.
Oh, you have a Porsche.
A Porsche, yeah.
Yeah.
Like we established in
That's
previous
right.
episodes.
That's right.
It makes more economical sense. And the ladies are going to be just as fascinated.
That's right. And you're not going to have too many 5-year-olds taking pictures in front of it.
Right, yeah.
That's actually a real concern. Well, I don't know. Do you want to add anything else, Mr. Kirchhoff?
Well, I would like to sincerely thank our audience. We really enjoy that you enjoy listening to us. And yeah, fingers crossed for deflation.
For a normal year. For a normal year.
For a healthy deflation.
Yeah, yes. I would like to add that the best way to listen to those podcasts, from my opinion, is everybody, there's no right way to do it. I think you should listen to them pretty often. Not every day, but you should listen and listen. There is a lot of wisdom in those podcasts that's virtually of not on my making. So even though I know what I said, listening to it, I discover things that are actually deeper than it seems. So even though the concept seems clear, I assure you there is actually quite a bit of subtleties, and listening to them over and over, I discover things that are like, wow, that was really well said. I don't know if I could have said it any better.
I mean, like I said, I used to reread those Viber messages
a
couple of times.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea, with Mr. Kirchhoff, is I would send him a message or two every day. And this is a common pattern. Sometimes I work with different people that people tell me that my messages take an hour to decipher.
I would call them, and during the whole deciphering process, I would call the key parts gold nuggets.
Gold nuggets. Yes. So we definitely discovered a few gold nuggets. So there's gold nuggets in probably every episode, and if you find them, you're listening to them right. If you don't find golden nuggets, this podcast probably is not going to change you. But if you continuously find golden nuggets in the podcast, this is going to have an impact. Maybe not immediate, but down the road for sure. And you could always go back and listen after taking a break. So no hurry.
What I would suggest, if you don't want to go through the whole listening of the podcast, if you do find gold nuggets, you can just write them down. That's what I would personally do. Just write down whatever impacted you. So
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Kirchhoff. It was a pleasure to have you as usual.
Thank you, Mr. Stoikov.